Tonight on Reporting Scotland, 50 families left homeless by a fire in Perth. A man died and an 8-year-old girl was injured in the blaze which destroyed a building in the city centre. Also on tonight's programme, up to 100 truckloads of Scotland's waste will be sent to England every day once a landfill ban comes in here. The First Minister says winter fuel payments for Scottish pensioners will not be less than those being paid south of the border.
Coming up in the sport, Robert McIntyre eyes major glory after battling one of the hardest golf courses in the world to finish second at the US Open.
And meet Dory the Dolphin, the new mascot, helping to turn Aberdeen into Party City for the Tall Ships races next month. Hello, I'm Laura Miller. Welcome to Monday's programme. Up to 50 families have lost their homes in a devastating fire in Perth at the weekend. A man died and several others, including an 8-year-old girl, were injured in the blaze. The council now says the damage to the tenement building is such that it needs to be completely demolished, and those who lived there now have to be rehomed. Our reporter Louise Cowie has more.
The fire-ravaged remains of a block of flats in Perth where a man died at the weekend. A blaze broke out in the 4-storey building on the corner of Scott Street and South Street in the early hours of Saturday morning. Dozens of residents had to be evacuated. Late this afternoon, the council revealed it will have to be demolished.
The prognosis is very bad. It's severely structurally damaged, and the whole building will have to come down, every bit of it. And it's a large building, 4 levels of flats above. And also shops underneath. The whole thing's a goner, I'm afraid. And so the demolition will start immediately.
Kieran Gibson and Ellen Fulton had to jump from their 3rd-floor flat into a cherry picker. They're among 50 families who will now have to be rehomed.
From the seams of it, we're not going to be able to go in and get any of our personal belongings or personal effects, so it's kind of just all gone. They're going to try and accommodate as much as possible. For us, I think, as some people might probably understand, is that we're a bit reluctant to go anything higher than 2 stories again, because we want to be able to get out if we need to. Just after that, yeah.
A police cordon remains in place and surrounding roads will be closed for months.
My business is also on Scott Street, so it's now closed as well. So currently I have no home and I can't go to work to even make a living to restart life.
Kieran and Ellen's friend Anthony lives in the block opposite and saw them trapped.
We walked out and they were, you could see them out the window, and they were in a really rough spot. A very, very rough spot.
A number of people sustained injuries in the fire, including an 8-year-old girl and 2 firefighters, one of whom was struck by falling masonry. A joint police and fire investigation into the cause of the blaze continues. Louise Cowie, Reporting Scotland, Perth.
Up to 100 trucks a day will be needed to move Scotland's waste to England for processing once a landfill ban comes in at the end of the year. Experts have told BBC Scotland's disclosure programme that 600,000 tonnes of residual rubbish will need an alternative home once the Scottish Government's ban is brought in. It's designed to cut planet-warming methane emissions from landfill sites, but Scotland doesn't have enough incinerators to meet demand. Our environment correspondent Kevin Keane reports.
We're out on the bins in the village of Strathmiglo in Fife.
People don't realise how far you actually walk in a day.
Yeah.
You don't need the gym when you work as a bin man.
It's the front line of our waste world. This is where we wash our hands of our rubbish. But for the stuff we throw out, its journey is only just beginning.
Now, as environment correspondent, I think a lot about how we generate our waste with the stuff that we buy. But like a lot of people, probably don't think too much about what happens to it when we stick it in the bin.
For 150 years, Scotland's unwanted waste has been dumped into landfill, but its decomposition has been warming the planet.
Historically, the biggest problem with a landfill site is not how it looks or how it even smells, it's the methane gas that's trapped under our feet here. Now, that's 28 times more potent than carbon dioxide. So on a modern site like this, it's piped away, burns as CO2, and it even creates electricity for the grid. How busy a place is this?
We take in about 150,000 tonnes of waste per annum. There's a bit of out of sight, out of mind.
We're still sending some of our household waste to landfill, but by the end of this year it'll have to find a new home. And the trouble is, in Scotland, there are very few options.
At the moment, it's estimated there's between 600,000 and 700,000 tonnes of waste that has not got a home, so it's not got any incineration capacity. So if the ban comes in at the end of the year, that material will either need to be exported or it'll need to go south of the border.
More incinerators is the answer, although not everybody agrees. But the Scottish Government has stopped any more from being built, and many of those already approved are still not operational.
I think it's a very important benefit of this type of facility. The heat network and the electricity that's produced clearly would not be here if we were continuing landfills. The facility is here to treat waste, but as a bonus, if you like, it can produce power and heat, and that is used locally and fed to the national grid.
The Scottish Government insists this capacity gap will only be short-term, although speaking on Radio Scotland earlier, the Climate Action Secretary admitted it would continue for at least 2 years. Kevin Keane, reporting Scotland.
And you can watch Disclosure, Where Will All My Rubbish Go? Tonight on BBC One at 8:30, or right now over on iPlayer. Now, Scotland's winter fuel payment scheme is to get more generous for pensioners here after changes announced last week for England and Wales. The First Minister made the announcement in a speech this morning. Well, our political correspondent David Wallace-Lockhart is here. David, what's the detail of this then?
So there's been a lot of back and forth on this issue. You'll remember the UK government scrapped the winter fuel payment. We were going to have this winter a devolved Scotland-only payment from the Scottish government. It was going to be a universal payment at a minimum of £100 per household. But last week, the UK government U-turned for England and Wales. They announced a not universal payment, but one that would go to about 3/4 of pensioner households. And that was going to be at a minimum of £200 for pensioner households. Now, that meant that some pensioners in Scotland were due to get less than comparable pensioners in England and Wales. But as part of the UK government announcement, it had released extra funding for Scotland. And John Swinney was giving a speech today where he talked about the fact he is going to make the Scottish system more generous.
I'm very happy to confirm today that no pensioner in Scotland will receive less than they would under the new UK scheme. Details will be set out in due course by my government, but the Scottish Government will always seek to do what is best for Scotland's pensioners.
And David, this came as part of a wider speech about public services.
Yeah, it was a speech John Swinney gave today at the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital in Glasgow, and he was talking about essentially making public services fit for the 21st century, as he put it. He wants more tech, he wants more artificial intelligence, he wants what he calls early intervention. So if you think about health, that's when you pick up on a health issue very early and deal with it then, which he believes saves taxpayers money in the long term. He did acknowledge, however, that public services are not performing as well as they should do. I quote him here, he said, "Our public services strain at the seams." Now, there was a Q&A section. I put to him that the SNP's been in government for almost 2 decades. He's been a key part of that government in that time. So does he take responsibility for the state of public services? John Swinney did point to the fact that he believes a lot of the factors here are issues out with his or his party's control. We're talking about COVID backlogs, talking about global inflation that's been going on. I suppose what we got today was the big picture, the big philosophical idea he wants to take forward. But there is an election in just a year's time. Public services will be a key part of that. So the big challenge he has, I suppose, is to prove he's making some headway with that vision by the time Scots go to the polls next year.
OK, David, thank you. To some of the day's other stories now. And a human leg has been found on an Ayrshire beach. Police Scotland say their inquiries are ongoing after the discovery of the body part on Prestwick Beach. The remains were discovered last Tuesday, and officers say they're trying to establish the full circumstances surrounding it. A 42-year-old man has appeared in court accused of murdering a man from Perth. 29-year-old Stephen Speedy was discovered on the Dunning to Kinross Road on Friday morning and was pronounced dead at the scene. John Higgins made no plea when he appeared in private before Perth Sheriff Court, accused of murder and attempting to defeat the ends of justice. He was remanded in custody and the case was continued for further examination. And the developer behind controversial plans for a holiday park by Loch Lomond has accused critics of hysteria and mistruth. Lomond Banks, owned by theme park operator Flamingo Land, would feature lodges, a monorail and a water park at Gallagher. The plans had been given the green light, but the Scottish Government has intervened and they have now stalled. Opponents say the resort would cause considerable damage affecting woodland and resulting in a huge amount of extra traffic in the area. Israel and Iran have continued to exchange fire, with hostilities entering a fourth night. And as tensions in the Middle East escalate, many people here are left waiting anxiously for news of loved ones thousands of miles away. Suzanne Allen reports.
Last night into this morning, missiles rained down on Tel Aviv. The conflict began on Friday when Israel attacked Iran. It retaliated with aerial attacks targeting Israel, triggering air raid siren warnings. People are taking shelter. Danielle lives in Israel but is originally from Scotland.
Everyone's quite anxious and kind of waiting to know what's going to happen from hour to hour. We've had quite a few sleepless nights. Last night, I think I got out of the shelter sometime after 5 a.m. after quite a heavy bombardment. Having to jump up in the middle of the night and run into a bomb shelter during these huge explosions is terrifying, and there's nothing to stop it from being my neighborhood as opposed to 2 neighborhoods away from me. So yeah, it's scary, and I think people are understandably really anxious and nervous.
This is a political conflict, but behind it are anxious and fearful citizens. Rohangi's owns the Shola restaurant in Glasgow. She's lived here for 20 years, but has family in Iran. Her brother-in-law says the news was a shock and information on loved ones hard to come by, causing a sleepless night.
We heard the news about like 1 o'clock, was it, at night, and we didn't know if it's true or no. So I started to search different places, breaking news, then I find out what happened. So that particular night, so I didn't sleep basically.
Rohangi's young nephew is in Garmsir and her niece is still living in Tehran, so is experiencing the bombardment.
And just quickly text to my niece. She's living in Tehran. She was awake, she was crying, and she said, we just wear our clothes, we don't know what to do. We don't know going out or staying in. And she just was crying. She just awake because of the very, bad sound with the explosion.
For these 2 families and many others, uncertainty remains. Suzanne Allen, reporting Scotland.
Now, in just over a year's time, Glasgow will once again play host to the Commonwealth Games. Today, what's been called a significant milestone in the preparations was reached, with work on the city's Scotstoun Stadium now underway. The existing athletics track at the ground is being ripped up and a new surface laid. It's one of 4 venues being used for the scaled-back games next summer. Our sports news correspondent Chris McLaughlin has been for a look.
Now just going to come a wee bit closer.
Hard hats and high vis, but no diggers yet. They're coming though, and they'll be busy. How can you convince people that this is going to be something special here? Because at the moment, clearly there's a lot of work to be done.
I think first and foremost there's a huge athletics community that love this venue, and it's always really important to root it in the sport, and I think the investment that we're making will be absolutely a long-term investment in the athletics community.
The old track is making way for a new multi-million-pound replacement. Temporary stands will be added later, capacity around 10,000. There's no escaping the difference in scale from 12 years ago when Hampden was revamped for the 2014 athletics. The biggest and the best in the business shone in front of 44,000. A new generation is coming though, and the excitement for them is no different.
Now, you were telling me that you were 11 years old when Glasgow 2014 was happening. Your memories of that?
Oh, it was brilliant. I mean, it was at Hampden Park. It was just absolutely insane. I remember I wanted to be a part of it so much, and now, 12 years later, the fact that it's going to be in Glasgow again would just be such an amazing opportunity, being born here and grew up in here, and the idea that my family could watch it on their doorstep would be absolutely insane.
A tall order awaits those putting on next year's show here for many reasons. Planning over, the work starts now. Chris McLaughlin, reporting Scotland.
Now, it is the prestigious International Sailing event, which is returning to Aberdeen for the first time in more than a quarter of a century. Nearly 50 vessels from across the world, all taking part in the Tall Ships Races 2025, will arrive in the city next month with huge crowds expected. And the full programme of events has now been unveiled, as Louise Jose reports.
It's the Sailing Spectacular, which is no stranger to the Granite City. Aberdeen welcomed the Tall Ships Races in both 1997 and 1991. Both events were attended by huge crowds and to high acclaim. Now it's about to return.
Final preparations are now being put in place to welcome nearly 50 ships here to Aberdeen's North Harbour. Organisers say the event promises to be bigger and better than ever before.
The tall ships, you can go on board the tall ships, you can visit the crews, the captains, and actually experience what these majestic ships are like on board. But also there's things for all sorts of ages. We've got an entertainment programme stacked full with lots of different activities for everyone. If you're a foodie lover, a music lover, children, we've got giant sand pits, we've got lots to do, it's brilliant.
This offshore service yard will be transformed into a venue with bands including Deacon Blue, the Kaiser Chiefs and Tidelines. Like all big events, there's a mascot, and for the tall ships, it's Dory the Dolphin. 230 young people from the northeast have been recruited as sailing trainees to work and travel on some of the vessels.
We had a meeting and we got to meet our crews and we got to meet who we're going to be going on the ship with, and then next week we've got some more bits and pieces that we're doing. We're learning how to tie the basics and like the knots and the rigging in the ships and stuff. I'm a bit nervous, but I know that I've got such a good crew that I feel confident that we're going to do really well.
The Tall Ships Races will be in Aberdeen from July the 19th until the 22nd, turning the city into a sea of colour once again. Louise Hosey, reporting Scotland, Aberdeen.
Okay, let's get tonight's sport now with Lewis, and it wasn't quite the plain sailing we'd hoped for our pal Bob last night, was it?
What a weekend it was. I think the'll be plenty of bleary-eyed golf fans across Scotland today that stayed up late to watch it. But
you included.
Me included, yeah. Jane Makeup's worked overtime today. Thanks, Laura. Good evening there. Well, Robert McIntyre says there's no reason he can't win one of golf's major championships after having to settle for a close second to American JJ Spawn in the US Open in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. 28-year-old McIntyre watched in the clubhouse on 1 over par as victory, or at least a playoff, for the Open player looked a real possibility until Spawn produced a moment of magic to clinch his maiden major title on 1 under. Kenny Crawford has more.
Almost got there, but not quite. But I always thought I could really challenge.
The fruits of Bob's labour across the pond are significant. His world ranking, Ryder Cup team chances and bank balance have all been boosted.
He'll use that, I'm quite sure, as a launch pad now to come back to Scotland, where we know he's happiest. He's got his title defence at the Scottish Open. And to your point, he goes to Royal Portrush, a golf course that he likes, but also a championship venue with which he's familiar and knows he's played some great stuff on. Thinking about it, for the first time in a long time, we have a male Scottish golfer to get really excited about. And I think we're just at the beginning of something special.
So maybe not too long before McIntyre's the man, carrying silverware like this. Kenny Crawford, reporting Scotland.
So close indeed. Now, you know Wimbledon must be round the corner when you see tennis tournaments being played on grass, and it was on the lawns of Queen's Club that Cameron Norrie was in action this afternoon. Well, despite taking his first round match against Jakub Menšik to a third set, Norrie lost the decider against the Czech by 6 games to 1. Edinburgh's Jacob Fernley is currently on court against Australian qualifier Alex Bolt. Fernley won the first set 6-2 and is tied at 3-all in the second. Moving to cricket now, and Scotland's men go into their T20 Tri-Series match against Nepal in Glasgow tomorrow with a win in the bag thanks to yesterday's victory over the Netherlands. Scotland were first to bat at the city's Clydesdale ground and scored 160 for 8, with George Munsey putting 30 runs on the scoreboard. And the hosts went on to bowl the Dutch out for 121 to win by 39 runs as Safian Sharif, Mark Watt and Jack Jarvis took 2 wickets each. King Yusei are still on track to clinch Shinty's Grand Slam as the league leaders lifted the McTavish Cup for the 4th year in a row with a 2-0 win over Lovett in the final at Bucht Park in Inverness. In tricky conditions, it took King Yusei until late in the second half to break Lovett down, with Savio Giannini opening the scoring before Roddy Young sealed the result in the dying minutes. King Yusei are still in with a chance of also winning the league title and the Macaulay and Camanachd Cups, although they weren't at their best against Lovett.
Pretty scrappy game. I thought we could have been a wee bit more clinical at times up front, especially the 4 of us probably know that coming off there. And yeah, we had plenty of chances to kill that game. Maybe even in the first half we could have been 2-3-0 up. Went in, but that's just sometimes the way the dice rolls. And yeah, happy to every time a defender goes off goal side from me at a free hit, I'm rubbing my hands together, you know, because I know the boys round about me will find me like. So yeah, that's all you can ask.
Scottish shooter Shona McIntosh has decided to put her retirement plans on hold to try to win an Olympic medal at the 3rd attempt. The 29-year-old has twice gone into the Olympics as the world #1, only to perform below her usual level. McIntosh failed to reach the final in all 3 disciplines in Paris last summer, but now she's targeting the Los Angeles Games, determined to be at her best and overcome her doubts.
I think the theme of this cycle is probably going to be psychology for me. Like technically I'm still very good. Obviously I'm going to be a wee bit rusty when I go back, but I think technically I'm still one of the best shooters in the world. And I think the bit that's going to separate me is trying to figure out that sort of psychology side of things. And I have worked with psychologists. That's going to be the theme for the next few years is either quieting that little voice or getting it to say something else, I suppose.
So a bit of shooting and shinty. Don't say I don't mix it up for you sometimes, Laura.
A few tongue twisters in there as well.
Yeah.
Scottish shooters, not easy to say. You did well though, thank you.
Thanks very much, I got my way through it.
OK, well, the news at 7 is coming up in a few minutes over on the BBC Scotland channel. They are reporting on how the lead singer of Oasis, Liam Gallagher, has hit out at Edinburgh City Council after fans of the band were described in a safety briefing as rowdy, intoxicated, middle-aged men who take up more room. They've been getting reaction from an Oasis tribute band singer.
Good on Liam for sort of sticking up for the Scottish crowd, absolutely. In our experience, the age range is so different. You know, we've got kids coming to see us, young teenagers all the way through. So the idea that they think it's just going to be sort of middle-aged, drunken. I don't want to mention about the weight thing that they were trying to imply, but it's definitely not like that at all.
Not that case.
Yeah, it's a real mix of people.
Certainly a story that gets people talking, that one. I couldn't possibly comment. Judith is here though. Weather gets us talking as well.
Yes,
How's it looking?
It's improving this week actually with high pressure building. A wee glimpse of the Glenfinnan viaduct there behind me, but as far as the working week is concerned, we're going to see more of this, more sunshine on the way and indeed warmth as well. Now why is that? First of all, we've got a wee fly in the ointment to get out of the way in the shape of a weather front, a cold front sinking south tonight, bringing some rain in association with that, some really quite strong winds, especially across the north. Once that clears away, here comes that high pressure building in nicely, and this will be slap bang across as Wednesday, Thursday and into Friday, and we'll see some real warmth coming our way as well. As far as tonight is concerned, well, rain already gathering courtesy of that front across the west and the north. This will sink south and eastwards as we head through the overnight period. As it clears away, there'll be a wee squeeze on the Isles of Bars. We could see gales across the very far north and the Northern Isles for a time, but the rain does weaken as it makes its way south, and temperature-wise, generally around about 10 to 12 Celsius or thereabouts. Into tomorrow, quite a cloudy start, a damp start, a windy start as well, but it does show signs of brightening up quite quickly from the north as we head through the course of the morning. And as we head through the course of the day, we'll see more in the way of sunshine developing, and the winds do ease as well. Come the afternoon, the Northern Isles look like having a fine afternoon with an occasionally fresh westerly breeze here, and that westerly breeze bringing some showers in across the country as we head through the course of the day. Across eastern Scotland, we could see 20 Celsius. Any showers in the east will tend to be over higher ground, and maybe the last vestiges of a weather front lying across the very far south of the country with the odd spot of rain or drizzle. In the west, though, again in that westerly flow, we'll see a scattering of light showers interspersed with sunny spells, and quite breezy here as well. Tomorrow evening, late sunshine and then some clear spells overnight, just a scattering of light showers. Thicker cloud moving into the northwest, bringing more in the way of showers by Wednesday morning. But Wednesday looks to be a fine day. Quite a fresh feel first thing, but lots of sunshine, just the odd shower come in the afternoon. Still temperature-wise on the fresh side, but all change as we head through Thursday and Friday. Those temperatures set to reach the low to mid-20s, and lots of dry, sunny weather on offer too. That's your forecast.
Something to look forward to. Thank you, Judith. Now tonight's main news again. 50 families have been left homeless by a fire in Perth. A man died and an 8-year-old girl was injured in the blaze at the weekend, which destroyed the building in the city centre. And that is Reporting Scotland for now. I will be here with your late news at around 10:30 tonight. Join me then if you can. In the meantime, from everyone on the team here in Glasgow and around the country, enjoy your evening. Good night.